Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed.
Hear me?
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Greetings, fellow listener. You are listening to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. My name is Christian Taylor, and thank you for clicking on today's recording. I was just sitting here at my work desk today, pretty bored to tell you the truth. I had a very chill shift at Walmart today, and I got home at the later parts of the afternoon all to myself, and I was thinking, you know what? I want to do another recording. I did a recording just a few days ago, basically reviving the entire show, and I decided to start off by talking about my experience at my AC/DC concert in Chicago. I figured that'd be a good, strong opener, and I don't know, it was weird. I was working today, and then this certain TV show popped into my head, and I'm thinking, you know what? It's time I talk about this, because I've been wanting to do a review of this show for quite a while. But first, I thought I'd tell you guys what I've been up to, because I didn't really talk about that too much in the last recording. So, over the 6 months since you heard from me last, I've just been working nonstop. The reason why I took a break from the show was because my life was just getting extremely busy. By the time I hit my 100th episode, it was right in the middle of my Christmas break, you know, from this current school year because I am also a substitute teacher, and I kind of figured it was time to take a break. And from then for the rest of the school this past school year, I was working nonstop. Both jobs took substituting and working at Walmart were taking up most of my time. And on top of that, I was trying to get to the gym as much as I could, helping my family out as much as I could. I had no free time to continue doing this show. But things have finally slowed down a little bit to where I can finally sit down and do some recordings again. And I'm very happy about that, because I love doing this show and I really, really missed it. But the break was definitely needed. But between, you know, from December to now, I've done a lot of cool stuff recently. If you guys follow me on my Instagram page, so I do have an Instagram account, just look up Christian Taylor. My cover photo is me in my wearing my Indiana Jones hat. You can't miss it. And I also have a Facebook fan page called Tales of Music and Film on Facebook, if you look in the group search bar. And you can also check out my YouTube channel where all my recordings are on there too. Just look up Tales of Music and Film on YouTube and you'll find my channel. You'll find the Tales of Music and Film logo. It's outer space with one of my professional photos taken of me in the center with like a satellite dish and stuff like that. But anyway, on those pages, I try to every once in a while just kind of make posts updating on what I'm doing. I haven't used any of those social medias in a while, but from this point forward, I'm going to try to do a better job of uploading stuff on there, just to let you guys know what I've been up to. But over the past 6 months, I've gone on quite a few awesome adventures. Me and a gang of buddies, we took a trip out to Chicago back in mid-April to attend the C2E2 convention in Chicago, and that entire trip was an absolute dream. It was my first big trip without my parents being present with me. Me and four other buddies went on the trip. We had a great time. We stayed in this very fancy hotel right in the middle of the city of Chicago. So that whole weekend, I got to get to see what it was like living in a big city, and it was really cool. We got to walk, you know, a lot of blocks of Chicago. We got to go on a small tour of the city, because the first day, so we attended C2E2 all 3 days, and that was my first time doing that. But anyway, Friday, the first day, we walked from our hotel to the convention building, which was about an hour walk. And it didn't bother us that badly because we wanted to save money on using Uber drivers. So we wanted to save money, so we decided on the first day just to walk, and we got there just fine. We were able to be on the floor for at least 2 or 3 hours, and that day our goal was just to scope the place out and see where everything is. And anyway, the hour-long walk up there was really cool. We got to see a lot of cool places along the way. So it was really cool getting to tour the city. And the C2E2 convention was a dream come true. That was one of my favorite convention experiences of all time. All 3 days, I met so many incredible people. I mean, I met people I never thought I'd ever get a chance to meet. I met my teenage crush, Denise Richards, from Starship Troopers, Wild Things. I mean, she was very popular, in the late 90s. And she was a very nice person to me. She autographed my Valentine horror movie VHS tape. And she autographed a picture of me, of her character from the James Bond film, The World's Not Enough. I also met some of the Breakfast Club actors like Molly Ringwald and Anthony Michael Hall, and they were both very nice people as well. That was very cool. Anthony Michael Hall was he was a very nice guy to chat with. He autographed my Halloween Kills poster, and yeah, he was just a very, very chill guy. So yeah, that whole convention was great. One last thing I got to do, I got to sit in a replica DeLorean that it was an attraction that somebody was running, and I paid to have my picture sitting in the DeLorean again. And that car was just so breathtaking. It was 100% accurate to how it looked in the Back to the Future film. And it was really cool getting to do that for the film's 40th anniversary. Because the last time I sat in a replica DeLorean, it was back when I attended the St. Louis Comic-Con for the very first time back in 2016. So getting that opportunity to sit in a Back to the Future DeLorean again was a very cool experience. So yeah, the whole C2E2 experience is something I will never ever forget. And then after that, a month later, I saw the AC/DC concert, and you can look up my recording of me talking about that. But that whole experience was just an absolute dream come true. I will never forget that concert for the rest of my life. And I also got to go to a couple of parties. For example, the community college that I went to back in from 2018 to 2021 they had a small reunion of me and my classmates because the radio station where we worked at turned 50 years old. So they invited all of us to come back to celebrate the station's 50th anniversary, and it was really cool getting to catch up with some of my classmates because I hadn't seen them in 5 years basically. So yeah, that was a very fun experience, and we got to go to a very nice winery, had myself a very nice special glass of wine, ate some pizza. Very fun experience. So yeah, I've had me quite a bit of small adventures during my break from the show, and it was all great. But you know what, I'm happy to be back. So that's just a little snippet of things I've been up to. But now I think it's time we get into the reason why you clicked on this recording. We are going to be talking about a show I was very late to the party to. And what show would that be? Smallville. Now, Smallville is a show that, I gotta be honest, folks, I was very hesitant, to check this show out for a while because I was worried that this show was going to be one of those examples of a show that hasn't aged very well. Because this show aired from 2001 to 2011. It ran for 10 full seasons. And back in the early 2000s, that was when, the superhero genre was really starting, to take off. You had, Ben Affleck's, Daredevil film. You had the Blade films. What we think. You had, the X-Men movies. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. Nick Cage's Ghost Rider. Then there was the 2003 Punisher film, the 2003 Elektra movie. I mean, all these big hero films were all coming out. Like the early 2000s, and yet the Fantastic Four. I mean, all these products just all coming out, in the early 2000s. And amongst all this, you had the Smallville show. And a lot of those movies didn't exactly age very, very well, to tell you the truth. And I was worried that Smallville was going to be one of them because there are a lot of examples, of movies and shows from a certain time period that doesn't age well. And I was worried this was going to be like an absolute cheese fest or something. But the reason I finally decided to check this show out was because a friend of mine, her name is Angel Lutz, her childhood TV show was Smallville. She talked about it all the time, and she tried for a couple of years to get me to watch it, and I kept, jokingly saying no just to make her angry. That's what friends do, right? Just to annoy her. But then one day in 2019, I finally decided, you know what? Okay, let's try this show out. And I binged the entire show, like 2019 and 2020. I spent those 2 years, watching the 10 seasons of Smallville, and I was genuinely surprised with how good the writing was of this show. I was shocked, with how good it was. And Angel, she was basically my guide throughout all the seasons. Like, if I was ever confused about any of the story arcs or any of the characters or anything, she was always there to answer all my questions. And she's a really good friend of mine, and I feel good that I finally was able to watch this show, and I think she really enjoyed, helping me out with all my questions and all that. So, yeah. So, Angel, if you ever listen to this, thank you for all the help along the way, and I would also like to take a moment to congratulate Angel. Her and her husband are expecting their first child, so congratulations to them. Her kid is going to be... her child's going to be born, I believe, in pretty soon, like a couple of weeks. So congratulations to them. But anyway, so I was just wondering, what makes this show so good? But before we get there, let's do a quick little summary of what this show is about. So Smallville is an interpretation of the Superman story, which features a young Clark Kent coming to grips with his merging superpowers. He must hide his abilities from his friends, including, Lana Lang, the girl of his dreams, and Lex Luthor, who will one day become Superman's nemesis. Complicating matters is the presence of kryptonite throughout Smallville, which causes strange mutations in locals and cripples that Clark, has to, fight or save. Because, the show is episodic. So each episode has him dealing with a different threat of somebody who's gotten some kind of superpowers because of the kryptonite that rained all over Smallville the day Clark's shuttle arrived in Smallville. And so the show ran, like I said, for 10 years. It had an episode count of 218 episodes. The first episode aired on October 16th, 2001, and the final episode aired on May 13th, 2011. And if you go to today, the show still has really high ratings. If you go on some of these review places, like Overview has the show at a 7.5 out of 10. IMDb has it at a 78%. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a score of 7.5 out of 10. So I think that's pretty good. And this show has a very, very big cast, so I'm only going to name off the main characters of this story. So you have Tom Welling, the main character of the story, who plays young Clark Kent. We have Michael Rosenbaum, who plays Lex Luthor. Kristen Kirk, I think is how you say her name. She plays Lana Lang. Erica Durance, she plays Lois Lane. Allison Mack, she plays Clark's best friend. Chloe is her name. We have Justin Hartley, who plays Green Arrow. We have John Schneider as Jonathan Kent. We have John Glover as Lionel Luthor. And lastly, we have Annette O'Toole as Martha Kent. So they're basically, these are the characters that had the most screen time out of everybody else throughout the 10-season run. And the cast for this show, man, I'm telling you, the cast was so good where I can't imagine anybody else playing these characters. My favorite character in Smallville was Jonathan Kent. John Schneider's Jonathan Kent is the best version of Jonathan Kent. I can't put into words just how good John Schneider did. I mean, no one else is going to be able to play this character as good as he did. Kevin Costner's Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel was an absolute disgrace to the character as far as I'm concerned. John Schneider did an amazing job. If I ever get to meet him one day, I'm going to make darn sure to tell him just how good of a job he did in this show. John was terrific as Jonathan Kent. And Anna did an amazing job as Martha. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else playing Martha Kent. She did such an amazing job. I loved it. And Tom Welling, I mean, my gosh, man, he was so good. He literally looked like, how Clark Kent would have looked when he was a teenager. I mean, like Tom, I think he was literally born to play this character. He was so good in this. And what's really cool is I actually got to meet Tom, Christine, and Michael Rosenbaum. I met them at the 2022 St. Louis Fan Expo. And that was a very cool experience. So I actually got a photo with Tom Welling. Very nice guy, by the way. And they had a Smallville panel. And me and my mom went to attend the panel. And when I went to this convention, I was dressed up in my Indiana Jones costume. And when it was time for, guests to come out to the microphones, like they had microphones on the left and right hand side of the auditorium. And they said we were welcome to take questions from you guys. And the line started filling up quickly. I immediately got up. I was on the left-hand side of the room, and I got in line. And I ended up being like one of the last people that was able to take a question before time ran out. And I directed my question to Tom and Michael, but before I even had a chance to ask the question, I had a pretty funny encounter. So when I was walking up to the microphone, Michael Rosenbaum started humming the Indiana Jones theme into the microphone. And I just thought that was just so funny. And then I started telling them, hey, it's awesome to meet you guys. I'm a huge Smallville fan. And then Tom just looks at me with this confused look, and he just goes, then why'd you not dress up as Quark? And I was like, Tom, I'm sorry. I was low on money. I had to put a costume together with what I already had, My entire Indiana Jones costume at that point was just thrown together with stuff out of my inventory of clothes, And Tom just goes, oh wow, you're a Smallville fan, yet you didn't cosplay as Clark. Wow. And I'm just like, wow, I literally got roasted by Tom Welling. I can now say that for the rest of my life. Man, they were just great sports, man. Great people. Great. I didn't get a chance to talk to Kristen, unfortunately, but she seemed like a very nice person too. But when it was my time to ask my question, I directed it towards Tom and Michael Rosenbaum because I wanted to ask for advice on how to run my podcast, because this was the summer right before my senior year at my college, and I wanted to start my own show over there. I already had the name picked out and everything. I just wanted to get some advice because Michael Rosenbaum hosts his own podcast called Inside of You. It's a great podcast, by the way. I checked his show out like not long after I met him at the convention. I watched quite a few of his episodes, and he's really good at interviewing people. I really enjoyed the episodes where he interviewed. He's had many guests from Smallville on his show, like Tom and Kristen and others, and he's really good at interviewing people. So I recommend you guys check his show out. It's called Inside of You. Great podcast. But he gave me some really good advice when I asked my question to him and Tom. They said, just let your guest, speak. If you have a guest on, for example, really let them answer the question you ask them. Really let them, critique their answers and stuff like that, and just be sure to structure your show very well. Find your voice. Find the style that works best for you, and things like that. And that was the best answer they ever could have gave me. And I just wish I could have. I just told them, thank you for the advice. And I still keep that in mind to this very day. And it's hard to believe it's already been 3 years since that interaction between us happened. But that's a celebrity interaction I'm never gonna forget. For the rest of my life. It was just a very cool moment I'll never forget. And one last interaction. So when I was at the C2E2 convention, as I was talking about earlier, I was in line to get my photo op with Denise Richards, and I was one of the last people to get a solo picture with her because the crew were getting ready to get the photo op set up for the Starship Trooper reunion photo which had the three other main actors from Starship Troopers, including Michael Ironside. So when I walked into the room to get my picture with Denise, Michael Ironside and the other actors were off to the side just waiting. And before I got to get my picture with Denise Richards, I got to walk over and shake hands with Michael Ironside right quick just to say hi to him. Because I never thought in a million years I'd ever get to see this guy in person. You know, it was just a very surreal moment, you know. I didn't get a chance, to tell him my name, but I got to shake his hand and say hi before the people told me to get next to Denise to get the picture taken. But Michael Ironside, I thought he was a pretty chill dude. I liked him. But anyway, he played Lois Lane's dad in the later seasons of Smallville. I believe he showed up in season 4, and then we see him again in seasons 9 and 10. He had a few guest appearances. So, yeah, those are I've officially met 4 actors from the Smallville show. So, yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool stories I'm sure I'll continue to tell for the rest of my life. And now I would like to get into... I found this really cool article here that does such an amazing job of just explaining why this show is so good, and over 20 years later after its start, why is it, even today, this show has aged mostly well, and it's got one of the best, superhero stories ever told. I mean, John Schneider said it best himself. I remember watching an interview with him once. He's like, Smallville is the crown jewel of a superhero story. And I'm just like, yeah, John, you couldn't have said that any better. But anyway, I found this really cool article here that just does a good job of explaining why this show is so good. And I'm going to read this to you. Okay, so here we go. Why was it so good? Smallville was successful due to its strong writing that focused on character development and emotional depth, high-quality production, and a talented cast that effectively portrayed their roles. The show explored the origin story of Superman in a unique way, focusing on his teenage years and the development of his powers and moral compass. The relationship between characters, particularly between Quark and Lex, Quark and his family, were also key to the show's appeal. And the article continues. Here's a more detailed look at why Smallville resonated with so many audiences. Character-driven storytelling. The show delved into the emotional lives of its characters, exploring their motivations and relationships in a way that made them relatable and compelling. The Lex Luthor story. The gradual transformation of Lex Luthor from Quark's friend to his nemesis was a captivating storyline that kept viewers invested. Strong cast chemistry. The actors, particularly Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum, had excellent chemistry, which enhanced the emotional impact of their interactions. Unique take on the Superman mythos. Smallville offered a fresh perspective on the Superman story, focusing on his formative years and the challenges he faced as a young man with extraordinary abilities. The coming-of-age narrative. The show's coming-of-age theme resonated with viewers as they watched Quark navigate the complexities of high school, relationships, and discovering his identity and discovering his destiny. Nostalgic appeal. For many, Smallville evoked a sense of nostalgia, bringing back memories of their own teenage experiences and the challenges they faced. The use of pop music. The show's use of popular music from the time period also added to its appeal and helped create a specific atmosphere. And the best example I can say about that is definitely the show's intro song, Save Me, which is a song that was written by Rami Zero. Smallville, in my opinion, has one of the greatest, TV show openings of all time with the song Save Me. I literally bought the Rami Zero CD that has Save Me on it now because of this show. It's a great, great song, and I will forever think of Smallville whenever I hear that song. They could, whoever's idea it was to use that song as the intro, whoever made that decision deserves some kind of bonus in their pay, because they could not have picked a better song. And I mean, if I had to do like a top 3 like TV show openings, I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer is number 1 for me. Number 2, Smallville, and I think number 3 is Peaky Blinders. Those are like my 3 like favorite like intro song, intro like TV show like opening themes. It's really really good. And the show did an amazing job. Like a lot of episodes feature bands who were very popular at the time, who were given the opportunity to appear on this show to promote their music. So definitely, that article is definitely right about that. And the show is one of those things, like, I think the show progressively got better with each season. And I think the show reached its peak with Season 7. Season 7, I think, is my favorite season because it introduced Supergirl. And then we really got to see Lex really turn into, full-time villain at this point. And I think Michael Rosenbaum gave his best performance of Lex in this season. His acting in this one was like top tier. I mean, his performance was great in the other seasons, but it feels like in 7 he really stepped it up. I think he finally got the Lex character like really really down at this point. But I think 7 had, like, in my opinion, the highest stakes. It had the best writing, in my opinion. Like, 7, I think, was my favorite season. And I think the show peaked at this season. Like, seasons 8, 9, and 10 were fantastic, but I don't think those last 3 seasons reached as good, as high as a mark as season 7 did. And the writers for this show were Alfred Gouge, I think is how you say his name, and Miles Miller. They were the writers for the first 7 seasons, but they left after season 7. And funny enough, their next big project is the Wednesday TV show. They are the writers for it, and season 2 is going to be dropping in a few months, so that's very, very, very exciting. And I made a really cool list here of some of my favorite moments from the show. And I'm just going to go through this list here of some of my favorite moments over the 10-season run of Smallville. So the first thing I'll talk about here is the talk between Clark and Jonathan in season 10. So Jonathan Kent was a main character in the first 5 seasons of Smallville, but in episode 12, Reckoning of season 5, Jonathan Kent dies, and he appears again for the rest of 5, either as a ghost or a villain impersonating as him. And then we don't see him again for the rest of the show until season 10, where he makes a couple appearances. Season 10, episode 1 ends with Jonathan coming to pay a visit to Clark as a ghost, and they have this very deep, father and son conversation. Clark's like, Dad, every time I feel like I do something right, I do something wrong. All I do is screw up. I don't know if I can do this, handle the responsibilities. And Jonathan just comes right in and gives Clark the advice he so desperately needs to hear. Jonathan always knew exactly what kind of things to say to Clark at the right time, And the relationship between Jonathan Kent and Clark in this show was the best version ever. I loved the father and son relationship between them in this show. Like, I think I don't know. I mean, season 7 is my favorite season, but man, those first 5 seasons with Jonathan were just so good. I really enjoyed the early seasons of Clark in high school. It really felt like, the classic hero story of the main hero in high school having to deal with powers, his parents trying their best to keep him in line. Like, I really just enjoyed that. But anyway, this scene just really stuck out to me. When Jonathan showed up and he started talking to Clark, giving him the advice, I'm just like, oh my gosh, Jonathan, I have missed you so much, man. The show has not been the same without you, like, the other thing I noticed about Jonathan's death was kind of like, did you notice after season 5's mid-season finale when Jonathan dies, the show had like this giant like shift in its tone. Like, the show continued to get dark from that point. I would argue, like, after season 5, 6 onward, the show just continued to get more dark. Like the uplifting factor was slowly starting to fade away now that Jonathan's gone. So Jonathan's death was kind of like the symbol of the darker tone that was going to continue in the later seasons. But man, that scene between Quark and Jonathan in season 10 just reminded me like how much I missed Jonathan and how I was so happy he was back if it was just for that one scene in that episode. But we ended up seeing him 3 more times. He makes appearances in a few more episodes during the later part of season 10. And another scene that I really enjoyed was, this goes back to season 1. I don't know which episode specifically this was, but it was the episode where the Lex lab building gets taken over by somebody who's like looking for a cure for something they're dealing with, and apparently he was experimented on by Lionel Luthor's like scientist or something. So he takes over the building while Quark and his classmates were there on a field trip, and Quark has to find a way to stop this guy because the building's been locked down. So Quark and his classmates and Lex are all trapped inside, and him and Lex have to find a way to stop this madman. And the episode ends when Quark defeats him. They're able to get back outside. All the parents are waiting outside for him. And Jonathan and Martha embrace Quark, giving him a hug, telling him how proud they are of everything he just did. And while they're doing this, Lex off in the distance just staring at them because he just has this look like he wishes he could have what Quark has. Like, he's so envious of Quark's family and how much he's loved, like he wishes that he could have that. Like that moment where the camera zooms in on Lex, you just see him staring at them from a distance. It makes you feel really bad for Lex. It's just like the dude grew up with the most horrible father imaginable. Like he lost his mom at a young age. Then you find out later on in the show his mom wasn't exactly a really good person either, so the fact that he was as good as he was in the early seasons was a miracle, to say the least. But I really liked that moment. And another one of my favorite scenes in this show is the final shot where we hear the classic Superman theme from the 1978 film. And we see Clark run on top of the Daily Planet, changes into his Superman costume for the very first time, and he flies out into the unknown to save his next person. And it just cuts to the credits. Like, dude, I'll never forget my feeling of that scene when the credits started rolling and we heard the main theme. The show wrapped up perfectly. Nothing was left unanswered. And I just had these feelings of like, dude, I just witnessed a grand freaking adventure. It was just, wow. I felt good, finishing the show. Like, what a journey it was, That final shot of him flying off was worth the 10-season wait. To finally see him suit up, like, man, it all built up to that moment, It's just, man, that was so good. Another moment I really enjoyed. Now, I don't remember what specific episode this happened in, but the episode in season 9 where Quark and Lois finally get together, I'm pretty sure most of us fans were like, oh my god, finally, Well, you could tell, like, Lois enters the Smallville story in season 4, and she becomes the main character from that point forward, and you can tell from the get-go that Lois and Quark like each other, they just don't know it yet. And then you see the relationship grow from season 4 all the way to 9. Then they finally get together, and you're just sitting there like, yeah, about freaking time, guys. Instead, we had to watch that god-awful relationship of Quark and Lana for 7 seasons, Finally, we get Quark and Lois, it was just, it's so good to finally, see them together. It's like they are a match made in heaven, to say the least. Like, it was just great to finally see them together. Let me look here. Oh, yeah. One of my favorite moments, I think this could be in my top 3 favorite moments of Smallville. Lex's entrance in the season 10 finale. So, I'll talk more about this here in a minute, but Michael Rosenbaum, who plays Lex Luthor, he left Smallville after season 7. But he came back for the final episode, and dude, his return was amazing. Dude, one of my favorite scenes in this show is when the world's ending and Clark's in the destroyed, Luthor mansion, and then we just see Lex, in the background in the dark, waiting to. You just see him there, and he's like, "Hi, Clark," and then Clark just has this shocked look on his face. He's like, "Lex," and Lex walks in. He's like, "You still say it the same way, with the ounce of dread, but a hopeful finish." It's just like, oh my gosh, Michael Rosenbaum, dude, we have missed you so much. And that final interaction between him and Clark, where Lex is telling Clark, I finally found who I am. I'm not the good guy, Clark. I never was. I'm the villain of your story. And Clark's telling and I'm always going to be there to stop you. Always. And Lex is like, oh, I'm counting on it. Just, dude, that whole final scene between them, oh, it was just so amazing. The chemistry between Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling's Clark, dude, these versions of Clark and Lex were so good. Nobody has topped their performances. Nobody. I don't think anybody's going to be able to top this. Just that scene was just so well written and set up. Finally, these are the versions of themselves from the classic Superman comics, That's all those seasons of building up have led to this moment, I'm so glad that Michael decided to come back, because that was one of the best scenes in the entire show. And another thing I really enjoyed about this show was that it played, homage and respect to the classic actors who played, DC characters, like Christopher Reeve, who played Superman in the late 70s. He got to appear in the show a couple of times. I believe it was in season 3, where he plays a scientist who recovered some artifacts from Clark's ship when he arrived in Smallville. So Christopher Reeve plays the scientist character, and Christopher Reeve sadly was paralyzed in real life because apparently he had an accident where he fell off a horse and it paralyzed him from the waist down. So for the rest of his life, he had to ride in this electric chair, and they had to write that into his character. And he passed away in 2004. And I remember one of the Smallville episodes, I believe it was season 3 or 4, had in memory of Christopher Reeve, and it had text saying, "Thank you, Christopher Reeve, for teaching us that anybody can fly." It was a very touching, and loving memory of Christopher Reeve. So I was very happy they did that. I loved the entire idea of bringing him on this show to play another character. It was a very cool, a passing of the torch kind of thing. I really enjoyed the scenes with Christopher Reeve and Tom Welling. That was very, very cool. Tom Welling literally looked like a teenage Christopher Reeve. So, the casting choice to have him play Clark was so spot on. Can you imagine anybody else playing Clark in this show? Tom was perfect for this. And I thought it was super cool that they brought in Linda Carter. She played Wonder Woman back in the 70s, and they brought her in for an episode in season 9 where you find out she's Chloe's birth mother. And I really enjoyed that entire episode where, Linda Carter's character is, dealing with some kind of, amnesia where she's not remembering things. And she's, locked up in a penitentiary or something. I forget exactly, where she is, but I just thought it was so cool they brought her into the show. Not just them. There's some big people make appearances in this. The one I think that really shocked me was that there was literally a scene in one of the episodes. I kid you not, Carrie Fisher was playing the lead boss at the Daily Planet in one of the early seasons of Smallville, where Chloe goes to Metropolis to job shadow at the Daily Planet. It cuts to her talking to Carrie Fisher. I'm like, why is Princess Leia in this? Like, where did she come from? Like, the Carrie Fisher cameo literally, like, shocked me. She was, like, the last person I was expecting to see in this. I thought that was very funny. Another cameo that really shocked me was Tom Wompat, who played Luke Duke alongside John Schneider, who played Bo Duke in the famous TV show Dukes of Hazzard. Now, Dukes of Hazzard was a childhood show for me. I used to watch it on TV when I was a little kid, way back in the very early 2000s. And one of my favorite photos from my childhood is me and my grandpa, Dick Taylor. We were standing in front of a replica General Lee back in 2005. And that is one of my favorite photos of me with my grandfather. And this show is awesome. At some point in my life, I am going to go back and rewatch all 7 seasons because I haven't seen all of them yet. But anyway, I loved Dukes of Hazzard. Like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be Bo Duke. You know, like, John Schneider's character, Bo, is my favorite character. And Catherine Bach's Daisy Duke, she was my very first crush when I was a kid for very obvious reasons. But anyway, in Smallville, Tom Wompat, makes a cameo in season 5, episode 6. And funny enough, you find out that Tom's playing Jonathan Kent's childhood best friend. And when he shows up, he's driving a 1968 Dodge Charger that looks very similar to the General Lee. And later on in the episode, Tom's on the phone. Tom Wompat's character is on the phone with somebody, and then Jonathan Kent comes driving up in his Charger, and Tom's character gets in the car by climbing over the door. And when he sits down, he tells Jonathan that the door's been stuck ever since he bought it. Another tongue-in-cheek reference to Dukes of Hazzard, because in Dukes of Hazzard, the General Lee's doors were welded shut because it was a race car, so the only way to get into the car was to climb over the doors. You had to put your legs in over the door first. So that was another reference to Dukes of Hazzard. And then they go on this Dukes of Hazzard-esque journey down one of Smallville's country roads, and Jonathan does a little jump with the car. So this whole sequence was literally a homage to Dukes of Hazzard. And you have Bo and Luke back together in a Dodge Charger, racing down a road. I mean, it doesn't get any more Dukes of Hazzard than that. There was even another Dukes of Hazzard reference back in Smallville season 1. There was an episode where Jonathan Kent's driving his truck, and on the radio you hear the Dukes of Hazzard theme by Waylon Jennings come on. And I just thought that was cool, because apparently John Schneider said in an interview that the writers for Smallville were Dukes of Hazzard fans, hence the reason why they put in a few references to Dukes of Hazzard in the show. So I thought it was really cool, to see Tom, make an appearance in one of the episodes. That was a very, very cool idea, and having him be Jonathan's, childhood best friend. That was, I think, a very, very, very cool writing choice. Now, one of my favorite episodes in this show, it's a sad episode, but it taught a very important life lesson. So back in the earlier seasons, we had this kid character who made a couple of appearances where he basically becomes like a little brother to Quark. I can't remember the kid's name. I tried researching it, but I cannot pinpoint the episodes that this kid appeared in, and I can't remember his name. He appears in like season 2 or something, and then I think we see him again in season 3, and you find out that he's dying from some kind of disease, and Quark does everything in his power to save this kid from dying. He even runs all the way to Metropolis to find like this doctor who he thinks can save him. And the doctor does the operation that should have saved the kid, but the kid still is told that they did everything they could to help him, but he's still going to pass away. Like, Quark did everything he could, but he still couldn't save this kid's life. So the next best thing he did was that the kid wanted to know what it was like to ride in a hot air balloon, so Quark does that for him. and they get to hang out together one last time before he dies, and I think Quark may even have gave him a hug or something. I can't remember. It's been a few years since I've seen this episode, but the episode ends with the kid passing away and Quark's just left completely heartbroken, and it's a really sad episode, but it pinpoints, the old saying, you can make all the right decisions and still lose, that's life. Like, for a Superman story, it's very important that he learns the lesson that you can't save everybody no matter how hard you try. That's actually the reason why Jonathan Kent gets killed off in a lot of adaptations of the Superman story. Usually he dies by like a stroke or something, and Clark does everything he can to save his life, but he still dies because Clark needs to learn that lesson. I know it's a very harsh way, but he has to learn that, that no matter what you do, there's just some people you can't save. So that episode in particular really stuck out to me, even though I can't remember the exact episode's name. If any of you would happen to know like who that character was or what episodes he appeared in, I would love the help, because I just cannot for the life of me remember what episodes it was or what this kid's character's name was called. Now we're getting near. We got a few moments left. So another one that I really enjoyed was Season 7, Episode 16, where Lex kills his father. Like, that last interaction between him and his dad, where Lex emerges from the dark shadow of the room they're talking in, which is an office, and Lex confronts Lionel because Lex learns the truth that, his life was ruined the day Clark arrived, because when Lex was a little boy when the meteor shower hit Smallville, and when Clark's pod arrived, and he was in a field somewhere where one of the meteors struck, and the shockwave shot, I think, kryptonite on him or something, and it made him permanently bald for the rest of his life. And apparently you find out in the later seasons that Lionel was there that day because he was waiting for Quark to arrive, because he was a part of like this cult or something that worshipped the Kryptonians or something like that. Something of that nature. And Lex is absolutely infuriated by this. Like, that day, my life was ruined, and you lied to me every day of my life. And then Lex literally drags Lionel to a window and shoves him out. And the last thing he says to his dad is, I died once in your world, and now you're going to die in mine. And Lex just straight up throws Lionel out the window. Keep in mind, they're in a building that goes up like 50 stories or something, and Lex throws him out the window and watches him fall to his death. That scene was absolutely insane. You see the reflection of Lionel falling down in Lex's eyes. Like, that whole scene was just, whoa, like Lex just fully embraced his evil side. And you actually find out, Michael Rosenbaum said that was actually one of his favorite scenes to shoot in the show, was that moment. And dude, if I could do like a top 10 Smallville moments like I'm doing, like, maybe I should have moved this higher up on the list. Be like, man, that was such a good scene. And another moment that I think was really heartbreaking was the learning of Lex's backstory. I think we learn his backstory more around season 3. There is this episode where like Clark gets trapped in Lex's mind, and we see the different like aspects of Lex's character. Like, Clark meets the kid Lex that is supposed to symbolize the good side of him. And I remember one time Kid Lex leads Clark, to the door that's going to get him out, and Kid Lex tells Clark, of course I'd help you, Clark, you're my friend. And they really hits you in the feels, because it's like there's good in Lex, but it's just so overshadowed because there's more dark side in him than good. But there's good in him. If only it could get out. You know what I mean? Just that little kid saying that to Clark, man, that really tugs at the heartstrings, I'll tell you that much, Lex's backstory in general is just so darn sad. Like, I remember there was another episode where you find out, like, he had, like, no friends growing up, and, like, there's this shot where we see one of his birthday parties. He had this giant table set up full of, like, cake and presents, and nobody showed up for it. He's just standing there crying, and Lionel's just looking at him, not giving a crap about the situation. It's just like, you just want to teleport into that scene and give Lex a hug, man. It's just, my gosh, you just feel so bad for him, And yeah, just learning his whole backstory was just really sad, but also intriguing. And one last scene I'll mention here, I think my one of my last favorite scenes in this show was when Quark and Lex meet for the very first time in the pilot, where Quark's walking across that bridge, and then Lex loses control of his car after a semi-truck drops like a piece of wood or something onto the road, and Lex loses control of the car, and he drives right into Quark over the bridge. They both fall in the water, and Quark's able to pull the roof off the car and save Lex from the water and pull him to the surface. And that was how they met for the first time. And I just think that whole encounter is really cool, because the main plot of this story is the friendship and the eventual downfall between these two characters. And here's where it started, right here. Like, that first interaction between them, was the stepping stone for what the show's mostly going to be about. So definitely another one of my favorite scenes in the show. Now we're going to be getting into my final 10. So I have a list here of 10 things that I would like to discuss right quick, of things I didn't like about the show, whether it be some characters or some of the arcs, stuff of that nature. I have 10 points here, and I'm just going to go through each one, and I'll just talk about each one I'll try not to be too long with it, just to save some time here. But point number one, Lex not being there for the last 3 seasons. So Michael Rosenbaum, as I said, left Smallville after season 7 because he was ready to move on. I guess contract was done at this point. He originally signed to do 6 seasons, but then he extended it to 7. But when it was time, when they asked him, okay, do you want to play him for 3 more seasons? He said no. He said he was ready to go and try out new things. So when he left, I think the show suffered a little bit because he was very crucial to the story. But when he left, they introduced a new character. If I pronounce her name wrong, I apologize. Lena Luthor. She was played by Cassidy Freeman, and she was basically Lex's replacement for the last 3 seasons. But I gotta admit, Lena was a very cool character, and I think she did a good job filling in Lex's shoes for the last 3 seasons. Like, she was really really good character. But those last 3 seasons, it's just with Lex gone, it just was not the same, because the dynamic between him and Quark was like one of the crucial things, about this show. So with him gone, a big chunk was just missing, And in season 8, they had this small arc where they brought Lex back, and they had like a stand-in guy who kind of looked like Michael Rosenbaum from certain angles, and then they just kill off Lex in the season 8 mid-season. And then they had to write an arc during the final of season 10 to bring him back. But yeah, Lex being gone those last 3 seasons was a little... I was really bummed out about that. But the show was still good, and Lena did a good job filling in for him, so it wasn't a big deal. But you can't help but wish you could have stayed there for the full 10-season run, But it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I really missed him those last 3 seasons. Point number 2, the Lana romance going on for 7 seasons. Now, I gotta admit, guys, one of the worst things about this show, in my personal opinion, was the, quote, air quotations, love story between Quark and Lana. So Lana was a main character for seasons 1 through 7, and she actually, the actress Kristen, she left after season 7 as well, but she came back for that Lex Luthor arc, which was about 5 episodes in season 8, and then she was gone. Then she left. But I'm not kidding you. The Quark and Lana romance goes on for over 7 seasons. And I got, guys, I gotta be honest with you, by season 3, I was tired of them, you know? Like, it kept doing this thing, like, season 1, they like each other, season 2, they get together, season 3, they break up, season 4, Lana's dating someone else, then they get back together again, season 5, Quark tries to marry her, it goes south, they break up again, season 6, she starts dating, you know, Lex, but she also likes Quark, so a whole love triangle shows up. It's just like, Lana, can you please, for the love of God, can you please make up your mind on who you want to be with, okay? Like, why did they have to drag this out for 7 seasons? It just doesn't make any sense. If their love story had gone on for like maybe 2 or 3 seasons, okay, that's fine. But did you have to drag it out for 7 seasons? Like, seriously, I don't think that was necessary at all. I was over it by season 3, man. And Lana just got progressively worse as a character the longer the show went on. I liked her in the beginning seasons, but season 5, episode 12, when they're doing Jonathan's, you know, service at his funeral, when Lana just decides to leave Quark alone at his dad's tombstone, that was really one of the moments where I'm like, okay, Lana, I am done with you. I'm never going to like you again. I never liked her from that point moving forward. And there was an arc with her in season 4 that I'll get into here in a minute, which really helped set the tone for me of like, okay, this character is starting to become way too unlikable. I liked her in the early seasons. I really did. But by season 4, she just kept getting more narcissistic and selfish to the point where I'm just like, Quark, why do you still like this girl? She has broken your heart over and over again. You have got to let her go, you know? But, man, it's just, why did it have to go for 7 seasons? You know, just drove me crazy. Now, another one that I have here is that, so I was really bummed. So Martha Kent was another one of my favorite characters in the show, and they wrote her out of Smallville after season 6, where she decides to become a state senator or something. And when she left, it really felt like the heart of the show was gone. Like, one of my favorite things about Smallville was the relationship between Quark and his parents. You know, Jonathan being killed off in season 5, you know, made sense because they had to tell that story because it's very important to Quark's development as a character. But with Martha gone those last 4 seasons, it just really felt like the heart of the show was gone, you know. But the reason they did that was because the Martha actress, Annette, she was ready to leave the show because she wanted to be back with her kids. And she also revealed in interviews where she said she felt like she wasn't really being given much to do. Like, Martha wasn't really given much to do, and I can see that. Like, in season 6, she just kind of, like, you know, stands around, takes care of Quark, you know, and that's really about it. They didn't really give her much to do, and I wish that the writers could have found a way to keep her in the story. Like, the further you go into the show, the more cast members we lose. Like, by 7, you know, by the time season 8 started, we lost a lot of characters. I mean, Lex was gone, Lana was gone, Lionel was gone, Jonathan was gone, Martha was gone. You know, I mean, we had so many characters gone, and the show was just starting not to feel the same. Like, I was really happy they brought Martha back near the end of season 9, and then she came back for some episodes in season 10, but man, the show really struck a blow with Martha not being there anymore, in my opinion. Like, yeah, like, when she left, the show just wasn't quite the same for me. It was still good, but it wasn't as good. Now, this is a story arc. So, point number 4, the romance between Lana and Jason. So, Jason's a character that gets introduced in season 4. He is Lana's new boyfriend, played by Jensen Ackles, which you may remember, he played Dean Winchester on the hit TV show Supernatural. So Jensen plays the main character of Jason for season 4 of Smallville, because in the season 3 finale, Lana and Clark break up, like they always do, and Lana goes on a trip to like Paris or something, and Clark isn't able to make it in time to see her off, and in season 4, she meets a new boyfriend named Jason, and he becomes the main character for the 4th season of Smallville. And their relationship started off okay, I guess, but then it literally enters like top creep territory, because when they go back to Smallville, where Lana, is starting her senior year of high school, Jason becomes a assistant football coach for the high school football team. So like, a assistant football coach is in a relationship with Lana when she is a student at this high school. I mean, that's bad. I mean, did none of the writers think about this? I mean, Michael Rosenbaum even brings this up in his new podcast he does called Togville, where him and Tom Welling, are co-hosts, and they're currently reviewing every episode of Smallville. I think they've gone through the first 4 seasons so far. I could be wrong. But even Michael talks about this, like this story did not age well at all. Like, that is just outright creepy and weird. I mean, in real life, Jason would have been arrested instantly. I mean, that is wrong. He is a young adult dating a teenager who's still in high school. Like, Lana's like 17 and he's like probably 20 something, it looks like. Like, that did not age well at all. Like, that is bad, man. That is bad, bad, bad. Like, and I'm very surprised that none of the writers didn't think about that when they were writing season 4. Like, that whole love story with Lana and Jason, it was absolute peak cringe level of just, bad. Now, another thing about Smallville I did not enjoy at all. Now, this is a story type that just needs to die in a fire. The love triangle, thing. Every show imaginable, every sitcom, any show you can think of, they love using this archetype, the love triangle. I hate it with a burning passion. I am sick of seeing it. What does Smallville decide to do, with season 6, like seasons 5, 6, and 7? What do? They do a Clark, Lana, and Lex love triangle. As if the relationship between Lana and Clark wasn't bad enough. Oh, let's get a love triangle in where Lex likes her now. Like, really? Yeah, just what this show needed, right? This love triangle made me want to be an alcoholic the rest of my life. Like, the episodes with these 3, like, it just, oh my gosh. Like, it was torture. I mean, I hate it. I was just, yet again, Lana cannot seem to make up her mind on who she wants to be with. It was just ridiculous. And I just cannot believe that this arc was carried over for a couple of seasons. Like, seriously, I just don't understand Clark's obsession for this girl. Clark, Lana is not that great. Same with Lex. Lana is not that great. She's not the partner I don't think you need there, pal. She's not exactly a good person. She's proven that time and time again. But dude, the love triangle, just, oh my gosh, please make it end. That was a very tough few seasons to get through, let me tell you. Now, this is another small one. So, point 7 is that I was very disappointed that Smallville didn't make Supergirl a main character. So, Supergirl is introduced in season 7 of Smallville, and she's only a main character for 1 season, and then she just like disappears for seasons 8 and 9, and then she randomly shows up again in season 10. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, why didn't you guys have her be a main character? Like, season 7, seasons 8, 9, and 10, she should have been a main character. Like, we should have been seeing her face pop up in the opening credits for every episode. Like, why wasn't she a main character for the rest of the show? Like, she's literally Quark's cousin. She's a family member. Why did you give her... Like, she didn't even get that much screen time in season 7, if I'm being perfectly honest. And in season 10, she shows up for a couple episodes, and then she just disappears. It was that was like one of the most disappointing things about Smallville, was the way, they wrote, Kara. Like, she deserved better. She should have been a main character during those last 4 seasons of Smallville. I think there could have been many amazing stories they could have did. Like, I feel like season 7 just barely scratched the surface of the friendship between Quark and Kara. I mean, like, there could have been so many journeys they could have went on together, so many bonding moments. She could have became like a sister to him or something, I just feel like there was more to be done with the relationship between these two, and I just wish they could have gotten more screen time together, I feel like a lot of potential storytelling with these two was just wasted. And I wonder sometimes, like how many cool stories they could have did with Supergirl if they just made her a main character from 7 to 10. But nonetheless, I think she was a great character, and she was played by Laura Vandervoort is her name, and she did a very good job playing Supergirl in the screen time that she was given. I thought she did a really good job. But like I said, I just wish they just made her a main character. But nonetheless, great job, great character. Just wish we could have gotten to see more of her. A very, kind of small little criticism I had there. Now, this next one here is a big one that I really want to talk about here. So, there were a few arcs in this show that made me extremely angry with the way they were written. And the one in particular was the Alyssa Baker story arc in seasons 3 and 4. So, Alyssa Baker is a character that gets introduced in season 3 of Smallville. So Quark and his classmates are on a field trip somewhere, and then Quark and Alyssa get into an elevator, and on their way out the elevator, like, the cable gets damaged somehow, and the elevator is literally falling, and then you find out Alyssa has powers, and she teleports her and Quark out of the elevator, and her and Quark reveal they have powers to one another, and then they form a friendship, then they eventually fall in love with one another, and then Quark asks her out. Everything seems to be going very fine. And also, can I just say that Quark had way more chemistry with Alyssa than he ever did with Lana? Like, I feel like there should have been at least a full season of a relationship between these two. Like, I'm so angry that the writers decided to do 7 seasons of Quark and Lana, where they could have, like, taken a few season break from Lana and had Quark date someone else. There should have been a season, in my opinion, of him and Alyssa together. I really think so. But anyway, so everything seems to be going fine between them in this episode, but then Alyssa starts to act more and more like a stalker until you find out she's got a few screws loose in her head, and you find out her powers have kind of put her in a bad state mentally, and you find out she's a very stalkerish person, and then she kidnaps Lana because she's jealous of her, tries to kill her. Quark has to save Lana, very, freak show of the week story, Anyway, he saves her, Alyssa gets sent to jail, and that's it. And then she shows up again in season 4, and you find out that she went through therapy and stuff, and she went through psychological stuff, and now she's actually good now. And she tries to undo the damage she did back in season 3, but our queen herself, Lana, cannot bring herself to forgive Alyssa, which is kind of understandable. But Alyssa tries to apologize for what she did to Lana, and Lana will not give her a chance. And Quark, being the good man that he is, he gives her a chance. But then everybody else at the school all judge him for giving Alyssa a chance. Everybody talks crap to him about it. And everybody goes out of their way, to tell Alyssa how awful of a person she is. And Lana was so unfair to Alyssa, it wasn't even funny. Like, this was the arc that made me realize what a horrible person Lana has become. And, plot twist, she gets worse, as the show goes on. And, Alyssa deserved better, She tries to repair the damage on what she did, but then she gets the grand old idea of brainwashing Clark, and what does she do? So apparently, you find out in Smallville that there is a kryptonite that's red, where if it gets in Clark's vicinity, it makes, like, his dark side take over him, and he becomes a completely different person. She possesses Clark with this red kryptonite. They get married and run off, and they disappear for like a weekend or something. They like go to like Vegas or something. But then Alyssa realizes what she's doing is wrong, and she takes the rock away from Clark, and he turns back to normal, and then they have to get back to Smallville. But when Clark gets back, Martha and Jonathan are so horrible towards him, it's not even funny. Like, you find out that Jonathan won't even speak to Clark because he is so angry at him for what he did, and Martha is looking at him with total shame. And I'm just sitting here, okay, Jonathan, Martha, you do realize it was established that when this red kryptonite gets in Clark's vicinity, it literally possesses him. He has no control about it whatsoever. He literally gets possessed. It's out of his control. And we learned this in the earlier seasons. Jonathan and Martha have full knowledge of this. Yet in this arc, when he gets home, they are so unfair. They both treat him like crap. And they both know that he had no control over his actions. This guy is literally at the kitchen counter crying his eyes out. And Jonathan's giving him the cold shoulder. Won't even talk to him. And Martha's just, talking down on him like he did something. Like, okay, Martha, did Clark kill somebody? I mean, like, why are you being so mean? Like, again, the writing was kind of bad in this arc because both Jonathan and Martha know that this rock, does things to Clark that he has no control over whatsoever. So that entire scene just made my blood boil so freaking bad. And the ending to this arc was, I don't think I've ever been so angry in my life. So this arc ends where there is a killer going around killing students, and they all think that it's Alyssa. And the killer frames Alyssa as the killer, but you find out it wasn't her, and the killer gets Alyssa and kills her, and Clark doesn't get there in time to save Alyssa, and she was hung. And the scene where Clark finds her dead, and he's just screaming in the sky, screaming no. Like, dude, that was like another like huge heartbreaking moment. It's just, Alyssa was done so darn dirty in season 4. She deserved better. And like Lana, I wanted her to jump off a cliff by this point. I despised her character, wanted nothing to do with her from this point forward. Like, this was the arc that forever sealed my opinion that Lana is a horrible person. But anyway, this whole arc with Alyssa was just so... the writing could have been done just a little better. Some things happen in this that didn't make any sense. But Alyssa, in my opinion, should have been in the show longer. I think they should have had a whole season with her, to tell you the truth. I thought her and Clark had way more chemistry than Clark ever had with Lana. But again, that's just my opinion. The Alyssa Baker story arc, I think, could have been done better. And I just wish the writing could have been done a little better with this arc. Now, another big one is that Clark basically gets Jonathan killed. So Jonathan's death. So the reason, there's a few factors that play into why Jonathan dies. Okay, so in the season 3 finale, season 2. The season 2 finale, Clark decides to blow up his space capsule that brought him to Earth. And you find out in season 2 that Martha is pregnant, And when Clark blows the ship up, the shockwave sends Jonathan and Martha in their truck, and it sends like this giant like shockwave, and it knocks the truck over. And then Martha has to be sent to the emergency room at the hospital, and you find out she lost the baby. And Jonathan just gives Clark an absolute scolding. Clark kind of deserved it, but it was a 50-50. Clark didn't think things through when he did that. But the way Jonathan was towards him was completely unfair. He put the full blame. It's like, oh, thanks, Jonathan. You're dad of the year. You're blaming your child's death solely on Clark. What a great guy you are. He just leaves Clark standing there in the window all alone while he goes into the operating room to hug Martha, and they're both crying in each other's arms, and Clark's just left there alone, probably feeling the guiltiest he's ever been. And then he runs away, grabs the motorcycle, and runs off into the sunset. And I'm like, Jonathan, that is 100% your fault, pal. Anyway, after Clark, he runs off to Metropolis. So between seasons 2 and 3, he's living in Metropolis, and he's using his powers for selfish reasons. He's robbing banks. He lives in an apartment somewhere, and Jonathan makes a deal with Clark's real dad, to Jor-El, I think's his name. And Jor-El sends Jonathan to Metropolis, where Clark is, and Jor-El gives Jonathan temporary Superman-esque powers, and Jonathan and Clark have this giant fight in Metropolis, and then Jonathan's able to snap Clark back to reality and brings him home. And then Clark just hugs Martha and says he's sorry about the baby. Then Martha's like, we never blamed you. And then the whole thing about the baby is never brought up again for the rest of the show. And I just feel like it was not addressed enough, There should have been a proper addressment of the baby's death. I feel like what should have happened was that when Jonathan's trying to convince Clark to come home, there should have been a line in the script where Clark's like, why? So I can get another baby killed? You said it was my fault, remember? Then Jonathan's like, Clark, I'm sorry. It was not your fault, the way Jonathan treated him in the season 2 finale should have been addressed. It was just kind of forgotten about. I'm like, no, we need to talk about this. Jonathan got way out of line in that scene. He was a horrible father to Clark in that moment, It needed to be addressed. If they had just added some of that dialogue into the script during that scene between them when they're fighting, that would have cleared everything up, And then Clark, when he comes home, should have been like, Mom, I am so sorry for getting the baby killed. I am sorry. Martha just embraces him and tells him it's not his fault. Boom. If they had just done those two things, it would have been fine. But the whole baby thing's basically dropped, and it's never brought up again, for the rest of the show, and that really annoyed me, to tell you the truth. If they had just added some of those dialogue moments in there, it would have fixed everything. But yeah, that was just something I wish that they had done. But anyway, that was another one that really drove me crazy. And while we're talking about Jonathan, so like I said, when Jonathan got the powers, it took a huge toll on his body. And then you find out in season 4 that he's having heart attacks because the temporary powers have took a toll on his body, because no normal human was ever built to withstand that kind of power. So he's having heart problems now, which contributes to his death in season 5. And in season 5, episode 12, Jonathan gets into a fist fight with Lionel. Then it causes Jonathan to have a giant heart attack, and he dies. And another factor in this was that during this episode, Clark reveals his powers to Lana, and then he proposes to her to marry him. And Lana says yes. And then, of course, she pays Lex a visit saying, hey, look, Clark proposed to me. Then Lex is just scolding away in his office, drinking alcohol because he was running for state senator against Jonathan Kent, and Jonathan won the election. So Lex is already extremely pissed off and sad at this point. And of course, Lana coming in saying that she's engaged to Clark was the final nail in the coffin. And then Lex attacks Lana. She runs off, gets in the car. Lex chases her, trying to tell her she's sorry, but then Lana gets distracted. She crashes her car because of Lex, and she dies in the accident. And then Clark holds her in his arms, and she dies. And then he goes back to the Fortress of Solitude, telling Jor-El, "Why did you do this to me? Why did you kill her off? Why did you do that? I don't deserve this." And then Jor-El gives him a choice. Do you want to go back to the past to fix this? And Clark's like, of course I do. And then Clark just completely ignores Jor-El's warning of, like, there's going to be consequences for this. And Clark's like, I don't care. I want to save my girlfriend, even though she's been mean to me and broken my heart over and over again. But we're just going to forget that. Anyway, he goes back in time and stops the accident. But doing this, he alters the timeline. And then Jonathan goes off to the farm to fight Lionel. So Clark made two selfish decisions. One, he runs off to Metropolis at the end of season 2. Second of all, he goes back in time, even though Jonathan warned him in the past, you gotta take full responsibility for your actions, yet he still goes back in time to do this. So Clark theoretically got Jonathan killed. And I was really bummed out that the story was written this way. But I feel like, at the very least, after Jonathan dies, Clark finally realizes that that really set the tone of, like, Clark, there are consequences for the decisions you make. You have got to start thinking things through. And thankfully, for the rest of the show, he never did anything that's stupid again. But you can't help but think, it's like, damn, did the kid have to get his dad killed for him to learn this lesson? I don't know. I had mixed feelings about the way Jonathan was killed off in this. Like, Jonathan dies so that, Queen Bitch Lana can live. I just thought that was kind of bullcrap, but still. This whole arc was a great one. Right? Reckoning's one of my favorite episodes, but the way they wrote Jonathan's death, it was tragic. And you do find out it wasn't entirely Clark's fault. Like, you find out in season 10 that Jonathan, died by his own hand, basically. But I still believe that Clark played a hand in it a little bit because of some of his selfish decisions. But nonetheless, that was just something about the art that kind of drove me a little crazy, was the way Jonathan's death was written. It wasn't anything too serious. Now, the last thing I'll talk about here, so my last point is that I feel like the relationship between Chloe and Clark wasn't explored enough, so it felt like it ended before it even started. So you find out in season 1 that Chloe's had a huge crush on Clark for a long time. They're childhood best friends, as you find out as you progress through the early seasons of Smallville. And I really enjoyed Chloe's character. Chloe and Clark are the only two characters to appear in all 10 seasons of Smallville. But anyway, little fun fact for you. I thought Chloe was a great character. Apparently she's unique to this show. I don't believe her character existed in any other Superman media up until this show. But I thought she was great. And I really enjoyed the relationship they were starting to build up between her and Clark. But after season 1, it was just kind of dropped. Them going to the dance together. Like, I really enjoyed the scene where Clark asks her to go to the dance. Again, I think Clark had more chemistry with Chloe than he ever did with Lana. I feel like there should have been at least a season with Clark and Chloe together. I think that would have been great. It would have been nice to have them be together for a little bit before he got with Lana, instead of, him and Lana being together for 7 straight seasons. But anyway, I really liked that scene of him asking her out to the dance. It was really cute, well written, had that, it was cool. It was really adorable, But and then, season 2, she's just like, you know what, Clark, it's okay. I'll just stay friends with you. Even though I clearly still am in love with you, we're just going to drop our love story here. It's never going to be picked up again. But then apparently a couple of seasons later, Chloe decides to write a love letter to Quark, and she reads it to him while he's unconscious. I don't get the whole thing about that. It's like, Chloe, if you still like him, why did you wait 2 seasons to tell him? You almost got with him, then you're like, you know what? Nah, we'll just end it here for no reason whatsoever. But again, I just feel like the relationship could have been touched upon a little more. Again, I think it would have been cool if we could have gotten a season with them together. I think that would have been a nice little addition to the show. But nonetheless, the friendship between them was good enough. They had a great friendship. Like, Chloe had Quark's back the entire 10 season run. She always stood up for him, and I always enjoyed the episodes where Chloe even stood up to Lana. Lana was a great friend of hers, but Chloe, she had moments. She told Lana, "You listen to me, Lana. Don't you dare hurt Quark." She always had Quark's back, and I really loved the friendship between them. So yeah, Chloe was a great addition to the show. I just kind of wish their love story could have lasted just a little longer. But yeah, like I said, nothing serious at all. It didn't hurt the show for me in any kind of way. So that's it. Those are all the notes I have for the TV show Smallville. And another thing I really did like about this show, it ended at just the right time. Like, I've noticed a lot of shows are doing this thing now where they're just over milking themselves to death. Like, you have Grey's Anatomy that's on season 20 something now. You have Supernatural that aired for 15 seasons. Like, you have to know when to end your show. Like Breaking Bad, for example. That show is only 62 episodes. It aired for 5 seasons, and now it's regarded as one of the greatest shows ever made. Smallville ended at just the right time. Like, by the time you get to season 10, it was really starting to get into the territory of, okay, we need to wrap this up. I feel like if the show had gone any longer, it would have been to the point where fans were like, okay, guys, can you end this now? I feel like that's a point you never want to get your show to, where fans actively are telling you, okay, guys, can you end this? You got to end the show. But Smallville's ending was perfect. It didn't feel dragged out in any kind of way, to tell you the truth. The whole thing felt like a good, even flow. So I'm very happy they ended it at 10. It was a perfect conclusion to the story. And that's kind of a hard thing to do. You got to end your show in a way where fans are left wanting more. But in this sense, I didn't want more. But it felt like, okay, that was perfect conclusion, It just felt like everything happened the way it was supposed to. Sure, there was a lot of roadblocks along the way in the later seasons, but thankfully the writers still made it work, and it was still a good, even flow show, all 10 seasons. That's kind of a rare thing to do, To keep your show consistently good for 10 straight seasons, that's not an easy thing to do in any kind of way. A lot of shows, when you get into the later seasons, the quality starts to take a nosedive, whether it be the storytelling, the characters, or whatnot. A lot of shows fall into that trap where the quality just goes down. But thankfully in Smallville's case, it didn't happen. It just continued getting better and better and better and better, So if you guys haven't checked this show out, I highly recommend you do. It's on the Hulu streaming service. I think Smallville has aged extremely well. I think it's one of the best superhero shows ever made. And I don't think we're ever going to see anything like it ever again. So yeah, definitely. Definitely check this show out. It's a long binge, but I think it's definitely worth the watch. I mean, this show single-handedly made me a Superman fan. I was not really a Superman fan when I watched Smallville. The only thing in Superman in it that I watched up until that point was the was the DC films like Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Justice League. That was it. Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman was all that I knew. But after watching the Smallville show, Tom Welling is peak Superman for me. So yeah, this show single-handedly made me a Superman fan. And one last thing I'll end this show on. I went on vacation recently to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And while up there, me and my family went to the Metropolis, Illinois Superman attraction. There's actually a city in Illinois called Metropolis, and they have a Superman museum there. me and my family, got to check that out, and we got to get our picture taken right next to this giant Superman statue, and that was really, really cool. And thanks to Smallville, it made that whole moment even more special because it made me a Superman fan. So yeah, that attraction is super cool. If you are a Superman fan, definitely make the drive or trip to Metropolis, Illinois. The Superman Museum there, great attraction. The store has a crap ton of amazing souvenirs you'll want to get for yourself. Definitely make a stop there. You won't regret it. So that is going to conclude my review of the Smallville TV show. Now, if I had to give it a rating, I think I'll give it a 9 out of 10. It's that good, in my opinion. Great show. I'm glad I finally decided to check it out. And definitely in my top 3 favorite TV shows of all time. Or at least top 5. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recording of Smallville. I hope you learned some cool stuff about it. And I hope you enjoyed all my talking points. Had a lot of fun recording this episode. And to all you listening, hope you are all doing extremely well. I wish you all good health and success in life. And keep living your life to the fullest. And just keep working hard. I promise you, you will achieve your dreams. So you guys all stay safe out there. And enjoy the rest of your summer. I have a lot of amazing recordings on the way. I have a long list of topics I cannot wait to discuss with you all. So until next time, my name is Christian Taylor, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.